Welcome back to the I Can Do Anything podcast. My name is Colin. I'm going to be talking today about some basketball because I can do anything. I haven't done this thing in a while. Welcome to the I Can Do Anything podcast. My name is Colin, and today I'll be talking about some basketball because I can do anything. Haven't talked about basketball in a while. I haven't done this podcast since like the beginning of April. It's been almost fucking a month. Last episode was with Dob on the weekend of the Sweet 16 Elite 8, just ahead of the Michigan State Duke game, which turned out to be a great fucking game. It was really emotional and really awesome to watch Michigan State beat such a highly touted Duke team in the fashion that they did it. It was dramatic. It was a back and forth game. Cassius Winston did an unbelievable job of dictating the pace and the tempo, and he dictated that entire game. I would say he probably had the ball in his hands for like fucking 75 to 80% of that game. It was pretty phenomenal. That was probably the game of the tournament, maybe with the exception of the Duke UCF game, which was really good. A game that Dob and I talked about in the last episode. The Virginia Purdue game was a really good one. I didn't see that game, but from what Dob said and from what I read about it, it was a really great game. Some of the highlights that we saw. I guess my takeaways from the NCAA tournament as it finished out, with Michigan State losing to Texas Tech in the Final Four, and then Virginia beating Auburn and then beating Texas Tech in the championship game, is that the NCAA tournament continues to be dictated by senior or experienced guard play. Cassius Winston, you saw it with Michigan State. You saw Auburn's little, I believe, senior guard or maybe junior guard take a really, he was great. That guy was so good. And he just, again, he dictated the tempo of that Auburn offense. He really dictated the tempo of that entire Auburn team, and beat like three historic programs, Kansas, North Carolina, and then Kentucky, before losing to Virginia in the Final Four. But you saw it with Michigan State and LSU. You saw it with Texas Tech's point guard and their defense and Virginia's defense. And then the announcers after the Michigan State-Duke game mentioned it. But the one-and-done era, or these one-and-done programs, don't necessarily equal championships. It's been kind of phenomenal to see just sort of the evolution of college basketball. I talked earlier in the basketball season, like a month or so ago, about how I would say that the NCAA ratings, I don't know anything about the NCAA ratings versus the NBA ratings, but I think overall, popularity-wise, throughout the entire season, as far as like talk radio and talk sports go, the NBA dominates in those fields over college basketball, and my guess is that the ratings for NBA basketball throughout the season are better. Maybe the NCAA tournament and March Madness as a whole probably peaks the ratings, and then I would say the NBA finals probably get close to March Madness ratings. Although March Madness is over such a long period of time, maybe the Thursday, Friday of the opening rounds of March Madness are their highest rated weekends or games. And then the NBA Finals games are probably their highest rated. But overall, the NBA probably has better ratings, more viewership, just a bigger fan following than the NCAA does. However, this year, it seems like there was more. I don't know if there was more parity, but you certainly saw less one-and-dones. There was a lot more upsets throughout the season. I don't know. That's not even really quantifiable. Like I'm just going off a feeling basically. And the one and dones don't produce championships. 4 of the teams that were in the NCAA tournament. No, let's see, it was of the 4 teams that were in the NCAA tournament, something like 7% of the points scored by all 4 of those teams were done by freshmen throughout the entire season. So you see a very small percentage of the points accumulated by those teams that made it to the Final Four were by their freshmen. And you just saw senior leadership. I think Virginia's star Guy is his last name, I believe. He was an upperclassman. You saw him lead Virginia. I think a couple of their big guys, that guy with the blonde hair whose name I can't remember, I believe he was an upperclassman as well. A lot of those guys on the Auburn team, they had a lot of upperclassmen. Michigan State led by a junior, Cassius Winston, Kenny Goings, a senior, Matt McQuaid, a senior, Ward, a junior, just a lot of senior and upperclassmen leadership on the teams that made it the furthest. So I guess that's my overall takeaway from March Madness and from the NCAA tournament and from the NCAA season. Men's college basketball as a whole. Something to be noted, my buddy David Cook, who I've been in NCAA tournament pools with since probably 6th or 7th grade, had a bracket, his bracket this year. He said he filled it out really quickly. And every year he picks a team that he sees throughout the season as kind of his dark horse for the NCAA tournament. And this year it was Texas Tech. He picked 3 of the 4 Final Four teams. He picked Michigan State, Texas Tech, Houston, who didn't make the Final Four, and then Virginia. And then he had Virginia and Texas Tech in the championship game, and he had Virginia winning it all. And I just thought that was remarkable. Like he told me, we talked about it a little bit throughout the tournament as it started to play out, and he said that he saw Texas Tech play in the regular season and then sort of picked them on a whim as he was filling out his bracket sort of last minute. And I just thought it was amazing that he picked not only that he picked Texas Tech to go to the Final Four, but that he picked them to be in the championship game, and then to have them losing in the championship game after, your dark horse going that far. I think a lot of people would have been like, "Oh, my dark horse, I've got him in the championship game. Let me pick him to win it." Just because, a lot of people, there were not very many people that picked Texas Tech to be in the Final Four, let alone the championship game. And I would assume anyone that did was probably a Texas Tech fan or a super duper basketball aficionado that followed basketball like crazy throughout the season. But yeah, I was fascinated by that. His bracket in the ESPN Tournament Challenge finished like 1,580th overall or something crazy like that out of, millions and millions of brackets that are submitted. I would be interested to know what his overall, ranking would have been in like all the brackets that were submitted. There's really no way of putting that together, but I guess like the top 3, CBS, Yahoo, and ESPN, you could probably do that. I would be really interested to see what that was, but fucking congratulations to David Cook, who won a couple of different of the different pools that I was in with him this year. Yeah, so that I think wraps up college basketball talk. I want to move now into some NBA playoff discussion. But first, the I Can Do Anything podcast is brought to you by Standard Process. Since 1929, Standard Process has been dedicated to the field of nutritional supplements and the whole food philosophy introduced by Dr. Royal Lee. With Standard Process supplements, you will discover just how resilient your body can be when given the proper nutrition. Standard Process supplements contain time-tested formulas with whole food ingredients that provide safe, effective, high-quality nutritional support available through healthcare professionals. Our products promote a better quality of life for our customers. Now, my uncle owns his own chiropractic practice and is a supplier of standard process supplements. And throughout my life, they've worked miracles after many different physical setbacks. I've sustained fractures, concussions, had infections, and much more. And each time my uncle gives me different supplements to treat the problem. I've taken a whole range of supplements that Standard Process offers, like Adrenal Complex, Biost, Ostrophin, SP Cleanse, Thymex, and currently taking AF Beta Food, inositol, Catalin, myotrophin, and ribonucleic acid, or RNA. Catalin, for example, is essentially a multivitamin that I take 2 of with breakfast and 2 of with dinner. It has vitamin A, which is important for growth and development and for immune system maintenance, as well as vision. Vitamin B, which is found in food sources like eggs, green vegetables, milk, and other dairy products, meat, mushrooms, and almonds. Vitamin C, which is an essential nutrient that is involved in the repair of tissue and enzymatic production of certain neurotransmitters. Neurotransmitters are chemical messengers that send signals throughout your central nervous system, which is your brain and spinal cord, and therefore play a major role in shaping everyday life and function. Vitamin C is required for functioning of several enzymes and is important for immune system function. It also functions as an antioxidant. Foods containing vitamin C include citrus fruits, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, raw bell peppers, and strawberries. Here's a fun fact. Prolonged storage or cooking may reduce vitamin C content in foods. So the broccoli that you're steaming, or any of the vegetables that you're cooking, along with whatever your main dish is, you're actually losing a lot of the nutritional supplements that are the reason for eating that food. So it's much better to eat those foods raw. Catalin also contains vitamin D, which plays a significant role in calcium homeostasis and metabolism. That's just one of the more than 300 supplements Standard Process has to offer. These supplements essentially pack all the food that we would never eat in the quantities that our bodies need to function at a high level. Whether you're an athlete or a regular Jane Doe, Standard Process supplements have what you need. All right, so the NBA playoffs have begun. I think the big storylines so far are the Russell Westbrook, Damian Lillard little rivalry that they got going on. Certainly thus far, with the exception of last night where Russell had 33. I think Dame had like 28 or so. I'm not looking at the box scores right now at all. I'm just going to go off the top. I think Damian Lillard's, I haven't watched any of the games. I really have fucking slacked like hardcore on this NBA thing. Not being able to watch the games on my second computer monitor at work because trying disabled streaming on campus has really hindered this podcast. That hasn't stopped me from spouting off the opinions without watching any of the games. But having not watched any of the games and just looking at box scores and seeing highlights and stuff, I think it's pretty clear that I think a lot of people by the eye test would probably take Russell Westbrook over Damian Lillard. I think maybe, let's say that they both at their very best. I think at their very best, most people, just given the eye test, seeing them both play really well, would probably choose Russell Westbrook over Damian Lillard if they were starting a team and they needed a point guard. Westbrook's far more physically imposing. He's probably a better rebounder. I think the statistics probably show that he's a better passer as far as assists go. Damian's a far better three-point shooter, and that's obviously a pretty significant part of the NBA today, three-point shooting. But I think most people, at their very best, both of them, would probably take Westbrook. But I think maybe this series is showing that maybe Damian Lillard is more important. I was listening to Stephen A. talk about this subject, and he said that he listed a stat about Lillard has played in like some ungodly percentage of the games that Portland has played over the last like 5 or 6 years. He's played in like 86 or 90% of games. He's only missed like 24 or 26 games over the last 5 or 6 years. I think that alone, I wouldn't call Russell Westbrook injury prone, but he's certainly had some significant injuries and missed a significant amount of time in his career due to injury. So I think that alone would lead me to take Lillard. I don't think either of them have had, I mean, Westbrook's gone to the finals. Lillard struggled to get out of the second round. But I think a large part of Westbrook going to the finals was Kevin Durant. I mean, certainly Westbrook had a hand in all that, and on those Thunder teams was the second best player on those teams. But I don't know that, in the last since Durant's left, they've had very similar playoff success or lack of playoff success. So it'll be interesting to see going forward how that series shapes up. I think the Celtics beat the Pacers last night to go up 3-0 in that series. That is a series that I talked about looking forward to as the playoffs approached towards the end of the regular season, and I would have predicted, and I think I did predict, that the Pacers would upset the Celtics just due to the turmoil and all that that the Celtics have had throughout the regular season, and I was wrong. They've gone up 3-0 now. Kyrie's looked really good. They got a lot of really balanced overall scoring last night in their win. I think they won by like 5 or 6. Last night it was like 104-96 or 103 or something like that. It was within 10 points, but Jaylen Brown played really well last night. I think he finished with 23 and led the Celtics. They got some pretty good contributions all around from Horford and Tatum and Irving, who had like 19, 18, and 16, I think, something like that. Yeah, I don't know. That series would have obviously been really different if Oladipo was there. You saw what Oladipo did for the Pacers last playoffs against the Cavs with LeBron, taking them to 7 games. Bogdanovich, I think, was a lot better with Oladipo. I think he made that team all around a lot better. It was amazing of them to even make the playoffs without him. CJ Miles certainly had a pretty big impact coming over from... Did he come over from Portland, or has he been somewhere else since then? I feel like he was in Dallas since then. Yeah, I think he was, because I think he was in the... I think he was a part of the Harrison Barnes trade, maybe, or I want to say there was a 3-team trade that Harrison Barnes, CJ Miles, Nick Stauskas, and some of those guys were involved in. Maybe it was with the Knicks. Yeah, maybe it was with the Knicks. And Barnes and Tim Hardaway Jr. ended up in Dallas. No, Barnes was in Dallas. Tim Hardaway Jr. ended up in Dallas. And Harrison Barnes went to Sacramento. I don't fucking know. Anyways, so yeah, that series seems to have been pretty much wrapped up. What are some other games that are going on? Durant played really well in Game 3. I didn't even really realize that the Clippers won Game 2 of that series after Durant and Beverly's little Game 1 ejection. Pat Beverly fucking does that to everybody. It's kind of amazing. He really is like that little, just annoying little dog that's nipping at your heels. And he really baited Kevin Durant into a technical, which led to their ejections late in the game after the Warriors had already pretty much wrapped up Game 1. Pretty poor, not poor performances, but pretty, for Warriors standards, pretty poor performances, pretty human performances from the Warriors in Game 2 as they lost Boogie Cousins. Didn't watch the game last night. or 2 nights ago when Durant had like 38 and played really well, and Bogut stepped into the starting role in that game. Was that last night or the night before? Yeah, that was last night. No, that was Thursday night. Durant had 38 in 30 minutes. Bogut played 25 minutes, had 8 points, 14 rebounds, 5 assists. And then the other game last night was the Raptors and the Magic. Pascal Siakam had 30 points, 11 rebounds, and no turnovers. Kawhi Leonard added 16. Kyle Lowry had 12 and 10 assists. No surprise there, really. I was kind of amazed that the Magic even won one game in that series. I think the Raptors will probably close that out 4-1 and win the next 2 games. Some of the other games from last night, the Nuggets and the Spurs. The Spurs won 118-108 on Thursday. So White had a career-high 38 points. I don't even know who that is. Derek White? Oh, my God. The backup point guard in place of the injured... I can't remember his name. The injured point guard for the Spurs that went out like right at the beginning of the season, maybe even it might have even been in the preseason before the season even started. But wow, I didn't know going into that a guy like Derek White had 36 points for them. DeRozan had 25. Jokic had 22 for the Nuggets. They didn't get much. Mikal Beasley had 20 off the bench for the Nuggets. I don't think the Spurs are going to get another performance like that out of Derek White, and they needed 36 to win by 10 from Derek White. That's going to be a really good series down the stretch. I think that certainly the Nuggets are a little vulnerable against the Spurs. That was a tough draw for them, being such a high seed and then drawing the very experienced Popovich-led Spurs was a tough draw for them as they look to make a little bit of a playoff push and just to improve on just missing the playoffs last year, and now they're the fucking 2 seed and they get the Spurs, which is unfortunate, but that'll be a really good series to pay attention to. Not necessarily the most exciting series of all the series, but that's a really good, both teams very team basketball oriented. And then the 76ers and the Nets, they played on Thursday, and the 76ers won pretty handily, 131-115. This game I did watch a little bit of. I fell asleep watching this game. We had the day off for Good Friday at the Old Trine University. Not a religious affiliated school, but for some reason we had Good Friday off. So, I wasn't really complaining, but yeah, I fell asleep watching this game. What I did see, Boban kind of dominated a little mini stretch with Embiid out. It seems like I got a notification yesterday that Embiid was probably going to miss Game 4 as well. It seems like they may not need him for this series. But moving forward, if they're going to make a run in the playoffs, especially against the Celtics or against the Raptors, they're going to need Embiid to be healthy. So it's probably good, I guess, that he sits out. Something that I noticed that the announcers kept talking about during that 76ers-Nets game on Thursday was that the Nets coach was like really, really focused in on J.J. Redick. It's kind of funny to me that J.J. Redick is like the focal point. And with Embiid out, that's a little skewed, obviously. But it's just funny to me that J.J. Redick is the focal point. And it makes sense. He really stretches the floor for them. He's their best shooter. They've got 2 of the better 3-point shooters in the league. J.J. Redick, just from a numbers standpoint, is one of the better 3-point shooters that the NBA has seen, I think, when his career is all said and done. This year, Tobias Harris has one of the best 3-point percentages. He was, I think, first or second throughout most of the season in my MVP matrix accumulations in 3-point percentage. Ben Simmons, the jump shot thing has been chronicled pretty heavily. I don't need to talk about that much. Although those wanted posters that people in Philadelphia were putting up for wanted Ben Simmons jump shot was pretty funny. But he played. He had 31 points. 38 minutes, 31 points, 4 rebounds, 9 assists. Shot 11 of 13, 84.6% from the field. Was 9-11 from the free throw line, which is good. Didn't take any threes, which is pretty customary. But like I said, Boban came in and had a little stretch where he dominated. He had Jared Dudley guarding him and made Jared Dudley look like a fucking stick figure. Jared Dudley's not a small guy. Jared Dudley's probably, I don't know, 6'6", 6'7", probably 240. Yeah, 6'7", 237. Wow, that was like almost spot on. But he made him look fucking tiny. And I mean, obviously Boban is huge. He's probably the biggest guy in the NBA right now at 7'3", fucking 290. Probably the ugliest guy in the NBA too, but played 18 minutes, had 14 points. 8 rebounds, was 3 of 5 from the field, 8 of 8 from the free throw line. Going forward today, the Sixers and the Nets play, the Nuggets, Spurs, the Bucks, Pistons, and the Rockets, Jazz. It's the first home game, Game 3 of the Bucks Pistons, the first home game for the Pistons in that series. I don't see that one changing much. Not sure if Blake Griffin's going to play. However, I don't see him making a huge impact. I think maybe the scores will be a little closer, but I don't see him having a much of an overall impact on the outcome of the game. Game 2, the Bucks won 120-99, and they won Game 1 by like 35 points, and were up by like as much as I think 41 or 43 at some point in those games. So maybe Blake Griffin will maybe lessen the margin of victory for the Bucks, but I don't think he'll have much of an impact on the outcome of the game. The Rockets are up 2-0 on the Jazz. The Jazz it's been an interesting season for the Jazz. It was a little rocky to start off. They had a really tough schedule at the beginning of the year, and then as that schedule kind of tapered off, they climbed their way into the playoffs and became I want to say they're is that the 4-5 matchup? I'm not sure. It doesn't say. I don't know. But anyways, it's been a tough series for them. I haven't watched any of these games either. Mainly because I don't really enjoy watching the Rockets very much. I do really like watching the Jazz. But that'll be interesting to see where that game goes. I think that game is in Utah. It is. So that's the first game, Game 3. The first home game for the Jazz in that series. My guess is they'll probably win that first home game, and then Game 4 will probably be a really good one. Nuggets Spurs, like I said today, will be a good one, and then the Sixers and the Nets. I think that's about all I got for NBA action. I think the MVP is Giannis. This is the fucking first time I've done this since the regular season ended. I think Giannis is the MVP. I'm not doing the MVP matrix this week or for the rest of the year, obviously, because the voting, I think, has probably already been done, and then the award ceremony will be after the season sometime in late June. I think Giannis is the MVP. I don't know that there's tons of debate. I think it pretty much comes down to Harden and Antetokounmpo, and the MVP matrix was led every single week by Antetokounmpo. I can't remember if it was the month of December or the January or February. It was one of those 3 months. My gut's telling me it was January. That Harden went on that unbelievable 30-point streak. I think it was like the end of December through most of January and maybe into February a little bit. But with the exception of that little run where he scored a bunch of different 50-point games, a couple 60-point games. That's what the Player of the Month awards are for. But as far as the all-around MVP, I think objectively speaking, it had to have been Giannis. His team was first in the NBA through the entire season. He put up MVP numbers and led the best team in the NBA. I think it's got to go to Giannis Antetokounmpo. I want to talk a little bit after this little brief commercial break from Ludus about what I have been doing over the last week or so that has led me to not really watching tons of NBA games or really many NBA games at all, with the exception of March Madness. I was watching a lot of March Madness as that was happening. But yeah, I haven't watched a ton of NBA games, and I'll talk after just a brief message from our sponsor, Ludus. Selling tickets should be easy so you can focus on what truly matters, your production. The I Can Do Anything podcast is powered by Ludus, built from the ground up for a high school theater director. Ludus is simple and free online ticket sales for K through 12 schools. With a customized ticketing portfolio, Ludus offers great customization features. Choose your own unique domain, pick custom colors to match your organization, and even build a meaningful splash page with the drag and drop editor. Take control of your ticket sales with the advanced control panel tools. Add shows and showtimes. Search for tickets. Find patron data in seconds. Create multiple admin users and issue exchanges and refunds at the click of a button. One of the best features Ludus has to offer is the ability to generate detailed reports, view revenue data broken down by day, manipulate your data to answer your questions about sales, and export your data for future use. Ludus also offers powerful reserved seating. Easily let your patrons choose their own seats for your reserved seating shows. For your reserved seating shows, upload your seating chart using our drag and drop maker. Add sections, rows, tables. Choose premium seating, and general admission shows are also possible. Keep track of student sales by simply adding student ledgers. Each student receives a Ludus account and a special sales code that can be applied to any order. When patrons purchase their tickets, they have the ability to print their tickets at home, have them digitally sent to their email for use on mobile devices, or mark them to be picked up at will call. With Ludus, customer service is a breeze. Oftentimes, it's nice to talk to a real person who understands what your job consists of. Ludus offers real-time support through their chat widget, step-by-step guides, through their chat widget, step-by-step guides, videos, and an 888 phone number. Ludus has sold over 200,000 tickets this year. Visit ludus.com and start selling tickets today with Ludus's forever 100% free guarantee to your program. That's ludus.com, LUDUS.com. Okay, Ludus. Dude, the people over at Ludus are great, and they really do support this show. Ludus is a fucking fantastic organization. It's a great company. It really was built from the ground up by not only for a high school theater director, one of the best, built by and for one of the best theater directors in the entire country. So yeah, go check out Ludus if you're a K through 12 theater director. That's a great company run by really great people, and it's a small company. So you really do get the customer support. It feels like you're just talking to friends, and really, really quick customer support too. I've been in there. Ludus's new office setup. It's a really cool, very modern, very feng shui, laid back office setup, and you really do get that feel when you work with Ludus. Geez, they just got the extended advertisement, the extended endorsement, and that's because they're good friends of the show, and I fucking love those guys. Those are good people over at Ludus. All right, so I've been watching these tiny home videos by a guy named Bryce Langston on YouTube. Bryce Langston runs I don't know too much about his background. It seems, though, from watching the videos, that he's a tiny home builder. He has a website called Living Large. livinglarge tinyhomes.com or something like that in his YouTube channel. If you just type in living large in a tiny home, you should more than likely find him on YouTube. But Bryce Langston is this guy that he just goes and does tours of tiny homes. And I was watching a bunch of his videos, and it seems like most tiny homes, generally speaking, have like the same or very similar layouts to them. They've got, like a deck for the most part. They're all pretty much rectangular. And then on the broad side, there's like a big entrance door, like some sort of big opening, usually like a big window in front of the kitchen sink space that kind of opens up the kitchen and the whole house to the deck. So yeah, you walk into like a main door to a living room area or like a living room / dining room area. A lot of these tiny homes are like very interchangeable, where a lot of like the spaces have different functionalities. But you walk into that living room, dining room area, and then you go into one side either has one side has the kitchen with usually a loft above, with a bedroom, and then on the other side, a bathroom underneath another loft or a bathroom, some variation of that setup. There's been a couple, generally speaking, I think most tiny homes are built for couples who are either past children or who don't have children, or young couples that are yet to have children. But there's certainly some of Bryce's videos feature families that are doing it. There was one family of 5 that had a bunk room with 3 bunks in it for children that were all under 8. I think that all the videos I've seen, none of them really involved teenagers. It was like kids under 10. I think the oldest child that I saw was maybe 10 or 12 or something like that. She might have been in like, I guess 10 and 12 is like middle school. I don't know. Anyways, but it seems like most of those are built for, like I said, adults, couples past children, in their 50s and beyond, or families that have really young children that still kind of like that whole like fairy tale vibe that tiny homes have, or like that like fort vibe that tiny homes have. That's sort of the attraction and the draw that I have to it. I was always building forts as a kid, so that's kind of what I like about the tiny home. It feels like a fort, and I think that's what these little kids enjoy, before they become teenagers and want their own bedrooms and stuff like that and their own privacy. A couple of them that I saw did have like privacy for a teenager or for a child. Like there was one that you like walked in. There was no big door on the broad side. The door was just on the like the end. You walked into the kitchen, and then above the kitchen was a loft, and then they had the living room space in the middle, and then a bathroom underneath, and then another loft above the bathroom on the other side. And both lofts had doors to them, so that the mom and the daughter, it was a single mom with like I think that was the oldest one that I saw, the oldest kid that I saw, in her, like I said, like 10 or 12 or something like that. She was probably like in middle school, middle or late middle school, 7th or 8th grade maybe. But yeah, so I saw one of these videos that really inspired me, and I really liked the design. I think it was very unique to most tiny homes, very different certainly than the majority of the tiny homes in the videos that Bryce Langston does. It was out in Washington. This guy that was like a former drummer in a popular band called Love. He had this hexagon house, and it was built like out of very, very primitive looking wood, like very non-man sculpted wood. It was very raw and just very, it had a very, rustic, I don't know what the words I'm looking for are. yeah, it just didn't feel man-made, and that was something that this guy talked about that owned the house. He didn't like the aesthetics of things that looked man-made, and so this was a very makeshift. There's the word. It was kind of makeshifty, and that kind of sounds negative, but that's the look that it had. It was a little bit makeshift. A lot of the appliances and things like that were really old. It just was old. I think it was like a 15-year-old house when Bryce did the video with this guy like a year or so or two ago. But I really liked the layout. So it was a hexagon. You walked in the main door off of the front deck, and then to the right was like a lounge area. Past that, on the right, was a kitchen area with a stove and a sink, and then there was a balcony above, or a little loft above, and his staircase kind of like looped over to the left, and then under the staircase was a unclosed off bathroom area that didn't even have a toilet. He had like a little outhouse outside, and then just a bathtub and a sink. But like I said, all the appliances and everything kind of like looked dirty and like very makeshifty. But I really liked the layout of this. His stairway went up to a little loft with a bed on the right, and then like a music playing area in the middle, and then kind of like a lounge area where he could sit and probably read or play music or whatever with like a chair. And so this week, after watching a shit ton of Bryce's videos, have designed my own tiny home in this really cool computer app called Room Sketcher that I got a while ago when I was looking at houses before I purchased the house that I currently live in. My idea was to build a house before I realized that it was going to be a lot more expensive than I could afford. I think if I were to build a house, I would have had to buy land for, I don't know, $20,000 to $40,000. This one piece of land that I was looking at up in the border of Michigan was going for like $24,000, and then if I was going to build on it, I wanted to build a house for like around $80,000 because I could afford like about $100,000 to $130,000 house, which would have made my mortgage payment doable, and sort of realized that building a house was going to cost like more than $120,000 without purchasing the land, so that I kind of realized that wasn't really doable. But before that, I got this Room Sketcher app and created a really cool layout and sent my work to a couple different builders in the area, and that's when I ultimately found out like a couple guys said that they'd do it, or that they could do it, but gave me an estimate that was a little bit out of my budget. So that idea I kind of tabled it for down the road. That house was I think like 1,400 square feet or 1,300 square feet, something like that. The one that I originally designed, but I used that same Room Sketcher app, which allows you to like build the walls, and it's got all the measurements of the walls and everything, and then you can put furniture in there, and all the furniture is scaled to like usual measurements of furniture sizes, and there's all kinds of different furniture and like fucking plants and placemats and tables and like chairs, ottomans, rugs, stuff you can put on the walls, like artwork, and just like everything, kitchen appliances, toilets, toilet paper rolls, like mirrors. It's very, very detailed, and I've had a lot of fun. I used to play Sims all the time as a kid. Like I said, I used to make forts all the time, so this has been like really fun for me, and has been kind of a reason why I haven't been watching tons of basketball in my spare time. I've basically been sitting there with basketball sort of on in the background, but then mostly focusing on this Room Sketcher app and designing this really cool. So I took my layout from the guy who had that hexagon, and I made mine an octagon. I built a little deck around it, or designed. I guess I didn't build it. I designed a little deck around it, and then just kind of took the layout similar to what he had. My staircase is like directly in the middle, whereas like I said, his was like a little off to the left and kind of wrapped around up to the right. So my staircase would be in the middle. And then like balconies or little, I guess balconies with the loft above that like both symmetrically wrap around both sides, with a kitchen underneath on the right, and then a little dining room seating area immediately on the right when you walk in the main door, and then like a deck off to the right with like a big, huge opening window with the countertop along like two of the sides of the octagon that occupied the kitchen that looked out to the deck, so you could entertain, so that the kitchen felt like a lot bigger when those doors were open out onto the deck, so that you could entertain out to the deck and really feel like you were outside while you're standing there, working at the stove, or making food at the stove, or cleaning the dishes, or doing whatever on the countertops. Then with a bathroom underneath the shower underneath the staircase, and then the bathroom extending past the staircase down the middle, along the back side, and then on the left side like a lounge area with a TV mounted on the wall, and then all kinds of storage underneath the staircase, which is underneath the staircase and along the side of the staircase, which is pretty typical for tiny houses. A lot of them utilize a lot of different storage, whether it's underneath beds or underneath the staircase. And then my bedroom would be on the right side of the lofted area with a little study / reading nook on the other side. This idea wouldn't really work well for having kids. Certainly if I had kids in this design, I could have a bed on either side of the lofted area. I made it big enough that you could fit like a king size bed, but I would probably just use a queen size bed to have some end tables. And then like a big 11-foot closet on that main back wall that could feature two different wardrobes and house shoes and all that stuff. This is an idea that I think going forward I've realized that because I wouldn't want to do it with kids, because I'd still want to be able to make love to my wife or my significant other. Wow, I just said wife. Huh. And not have the kids, listening to that shit and being traumatized by listening to their parents making love in the so yeah, I don't think this is a kids thing, because again it's just not the biggest setup, and maybe with kids early on it could be like a second house that we like a cottage that you go to and just spend a weekend, and in that case I could go a weekend without making love to my woman. But so this is like something that I see, maybe I have kids. I'm 26 right now. Maybe I have kids when I'm 30-ish. And then by the time they graduate high school and go off to college or whatever, by the time they're 20, I'm 50, and we build this tiny house, the Octagon house. I'm so excited. I have so much fun making this shit. I'm putting all kinds of detail into it, way more detail than is necessary. I don't know, what is define necessary? There's no necessary in this kind of thing. All those details are really necessary, I guess, in a house, but they're certainly not necessary for right now, because it's not something that's going to happen for a while. But I like to just have all the ideas written down. And as I think of stuff, I just write it in or add it into this design that I've got. But yeah, I've had tons of fun with this tiny home shit. If this has piqued your interest, go look at tiny homes. Go watch Bryce Langston's videos. There's some really, really cool ideas that I've kind of taken bits and pieces of and incorporated into mine. I think that about wraps it up for me today on the I Can Do Anything podcast. But first, this portion and the final ad read for the I Can Do Anything podcast is brought to you by Bragg's. The I Can Do Anything podcast is made possible by Bragg's Organic Apple Cider Vinegar. I like to endorse products that I use every day and find beneficial to my overall well-being, and Bragg's Organic Apple Cider Vinegar is just that. Now, admittedly, I haven't used it in a while. It's sitting up in a cabinet in my kitchen, and this shit is kind of spicy. It's kind of a difficult shot to take every morning, and for that reason, I've kind of been lacking a little bit, kind of been slacking on my apple cider vinegar intake. I haven't done it in a while, but it is something that not initially, but with prolonged use and regular use, certainly has pretty great health benefits. I drink it with breakfast in the morning, and quite honestly, like I said, it's pretty disgusting. I deviated a little bit from the ad read there, and some of my ad-libbing I forgot was in the ad read. And quite honestly, it's quite disgusting, but it really does clear out your system and give you a little jolt. And it's not an artificial jolt like those energy shots, and you won't crash because of it. Bragg's organic apple cider vinegar is USDA organic and is naturally gluten-free and made from the finest, delicious, healthy, organically grown apples. Raw apple cider vinegar is full of zesty, natural goodness and contains the amazing mother of vinegar. That's the word. That shit is definitely zesty, which occurs naturally as connected strand-like chains of protein enzymes, molecules, and is highly regarded throughout history. It also adds healthy, delicious flavor to salads, veggies, and most foods. Visit bragg.com. That's bragg.com, or braggacv, braggacv.com. Bragg, original health stores established in 1912. That's the podcast for today, guys. Thanks for listening. On Thursday night, I recorded a very similar version, all these same talking points, and recorded it on the fucking, what's it called? On the built-in microphone on my laptop. And the last time I did that, I got really fucking pissed off at myself. And it ruined the rest of my night. I think I talked about that on the episode that I released prior or after that, about how much it pissed me off. And I did it again on Thursday night, and told myself I wasn't going to do it again, but here I am. And I think this one was even better. But as soon as I realized it, I played it back and realized that it was recorded on my built-in microphone on my computer and sounded like shit. I was like, fuck it. I got the day off tomorrow. I wasted 40, 50 minutes of my life, but you know what? It doesn't fucking matter. So that was kind of cool. I don't know. It was just a little internal revelation. I was like, you know what? It's not going to affect me, because no one listens to this shit anyways. But if you are listening, I really appreciate it. Go out and do whatever the fuck you want to do this weekend, this Easter weekend. Hey, man, it's 420, man. You can do anything.